and we got the great co-host, Bill Kasko, CEO of Frontline Source Group, nationwide staffing. I wrote it all down, Bill. I got it down to a
Look
T
at
now.
you. Yeah, look
And
at you.
then this is Real Talk Recruitment, the third episode, and we started this. Well, it's our third episode. It's been 6 weeks now, and
Yeah.
it's going really well. So, I want to tell anybody, please, you feel like asking a question, ask it. We're just gonna we keep this real and not scripted, and looking forward to comments, message, whatever
That's
you
the
like.
best part. That's the best part. We just it's that banter back and forth, which makes it nice. It's nice just to have that conversation where we can talk like that and have people ask questions.
It is. We already got one person there. Another great show. Watch these two amazing gents. There we go. Love
Very
it.
nice.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to bring that up. What you just talked about, Bill, right there. Before I get into the stuff I wanted to talk to you about was, we just talked about the ways of people communicating, getting a hold of you, for work. So I told you that over the weekend I had a candidate reach out to me on my Facebook personal page, message me about the job. At first, I was excited about it. I was like, okay, this person really went out of the way, because we talked about all the different ways that you even say about, from the websites and LinkedIn. I'm like, wow. But then you made me think about it, what you said, and I'll let you talk about it. It's like, where do you draw the line on that? Because before you know it, is it going to get too personal? Do you want them going to your Facebook page after I thought about it? And the same thing. I'm not crazy on my Facebook page, trust me. But do you want people doing that?
Yeah. And I think that it's a really interesting topic, and there's a lot of different ways. I mean, you could talk about this a lot, but I think it goes back to professionalism and etiquette, right?
Right.
And the way that you want to be treated as a person. And I'm going to use this from the candidate side, because as a recruiter, we have to have empathy and we have to have grace.
Right.
And it's very important that we keep that in mind. But I'm going to say this, and here comes a hate mail. The individual looking for the career change in the work, you need to have the same for the recruiter.
Right.
There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much time, and we're stretched thin as well. And so there's two different ways. So if we're going to talk about the individual and the candidate, there's pros and cons, right? So the pro on this thing is to say, hey, I love the fact that they were taking the extra step,
right,
and they were going to try to do that. That I have to say, kudos and fantastic. Let's take David Wilson out and let's put David Wilson back in as HR hiring manager, and this person figures out who the hiring manager is, and instead of going through the correct channels, goes directly to David Wilson, individual not at work today, to their personal page,
right,
and starts pinging them and doing that. I believe it was the movie Wedding Crashers. This would be called a clinger stage 5.
I love it. No, I get it. No, I get it.
Right. Two things. Number one, as an HR hiring manager, I'm concerned for myself being and my well-being and everything else, right? Because why aren't you going through the regular channels? There's a second part of it, though, that makes me go, well, I appreciate the effort. But did you take the first steps to reach out to David, the HR manager, or David Wilson, the recruiter, to say, I tried to connect with you on LinkedIn, you didn't respond. I sent you an email. I sent you a connection request.
Right.
I did all of these different steps, and then I went to that extreme. If you did all of that and didn't get anything, I guess I can understand that.
Right.
But did you take all of those necessary steps? When you cross the personal boundary, have you crossed the line?
Yeah, because he didn't know who I was. He didn't, it doesn't say on my personal page that I work for my company.
You don't know who they are either, right? So I was telling David the story before the show started. He was telling about this, and I said about 18 years ago, had a gentleman during the Great Recession of 2008 who lived a couple neighborhoods over ride his bicycle to our home. And I just want you to imagine, and this is exactly how it was described to me, but it was like the bicycle from the Wizard of Oz, like Toto NEM, riding through our neighborhood, and came to our home, and I wasn't home, and our daughter was like 8, and she opened the door, and this guy kind of went off on her that he needed a job, and your dad does this, and he needs to find me, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I got a phone call. Man, I raced home.
Right.
And I knew exactly based on who this person was, because I quickly made a couple of calls people are like, oh, he lives over here. He does this, blah, blah, blah. No, I didn't go say anything. No, I didn't go. But part of me wanted to. Right. But my first defense was, you have just invaded my privacy and my family. And no, I'm not going to help you. No, I'm not. Because if you knew that much about me, why didn't you go through the professional steps to reach out to me?
Oh, I see what you're saying too. I get it. I know what you're saying now. Because if you don't even know if that person went through the LinkedIn, which he didn't. You know, I mean, like, did you go and to jump?
Did you call me?
Jump ahead? Yeah.
Did you call my office and try to even speak with me? No, you went to my home and crossed the line.
That must have been crazy. I don't even know what I would do if somebody showed up.
I will say, 18 years ago, we did live in a different type of world.
Right.
Still had to be careful, but it wasn't. And today today we won't answer the door.
Right.
Like, even today we won't.
No, you don't. You're true, because you look at your ring when the doorbell rings here or knock. You jump up. I'm sorry, in my area, you jump up. You're like, all right, what's going on?
Well, even at your office. I mean, we don't. If people, and that's where, as a recruit, you do have to have empathy. And you do have to try to communicate with an individual looking for work to explain, this is our process. This is the way we do it. You try to take that.
Right.
But even when we have people call, because we get people that will call and be upset because we don't place welders.
Right.
But they're like, well, you're an agency. You're supposed to do that. Okay. Well, if I go to the Lexus dealership and I want to buy a Rolls Royce, am I trying to be mad? Right. I mean, that's not what they do. And so, but then the other side is the empathy and the grace.
Right.
You don't know what they're going through. You don't understand that stress level unless you've been through it, which most of us have. But you don't know what's happening in their world, and you try to appease the best you can, point them in the right direction, give them the right guidance, help them, counsel them, whichever you can. But in the back of your mind too, as a person looking for work, remember that time that recruiter is spending with you to help you, they're not getting paid.
Right.
They have a family to feed also. And I think that's where there's a lot of disconnect, because from a individual looking for work, there's a great friend of mine who's a trainer who always talks the story that people call recruiters, those people, because they look at us and think, oh, you guys are making so much money. You're just blah, 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 blah. Look, it's feast and famine in our industry. Right. You have to be in this business. First of all, you got to have thick skin. You have to be able to handle it, because it's a roller coaster. And you don't realize that when we hear stories like, well, I don't know, we're going to go to war today. That automatically means our world just ended for a while. It's kind of stops. It puckers up. I mean, it's difficult to get people to hire, just as it is for you. And so it kind of works both ways. And I think, though, that we would be better all together in the world when we recognize that and we work together on that, but also, follow the right steps.
The steps.
And think about it differently.
And I agree with that too. And I always wonder why, like on LinkedIn, HR reps and higher ups, I can see why you can't just connect with them. A lot of them, because I always get asked a lot, hey, who's your HR? And I never give out emails of HR. I don't do that because I respect them. I can imagine how many people want to get a hold of them for something, whether a job or anything. But if they're going to research that is just another, I know what you're saying there, because boy, that opens up the door. If you start going on to a social media page or anybody's private area like that.
I just think there should be separation, right?
Yeah, on a little bit of that to be able to.
Somebody recently asked me, because I do a lot of recruiting on Sunday afternoons, and
I've done that,
and Sunday evenings. Yep. It's a great time. Guess what? People that are looking for work, they're actually looking on Sunday nights, just like they're in the evenings. They're watching TV and they're scrolling. They're looking at LinkedIn, and I had sent a message to somebody on a Sunday one time, who I was responding, because I was getting back and trying to get caught up on stuff before Monday. And they were like, it's Sunday. You shouldn't be doing that. And then I thought, okay, now we're going to have rules on when we, you're looking for work. I'm trying to communicate back to you, trying to help point you in the right direction. And now you're going to start bashing me. It's like, I don't know what to do. And that's the problem. when you're in recruiting, trying to find new work, trying to find a new career.
Right.
There's not a set line of rules. I mean, it's like you can have common sense, but then when does common sense make sense and not?
Right.
Because if you're looking for work and there shouldn't be a time when it's off the table.
Right.
If someone said, "Hey, I can interview on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m." Well, that's really my time. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. And then I think there's also that misunderstanding too, that, from a recruiting standpoint, we have to follow what's the hottest thing to have happen.
Right.
And so if we have a client who says, "Hey," and most of us aren't paid unless we're successful in placing people.
Right.
So if you're not 80% fit, this came up the other day. Somebody said, "Well, I'm at least a 60% fit," and I said, "Listen, that's great.
Right.
I'll speak to you if you're like an 80. The problem isn't me. The problem is the employer.
Right.
The employer is not looking for an 80%.
Right.
They're looking for a 99 to a 101, if that's even possible. I mean, they're looking for literally that needle in a haystack. And so when you're looking, you can't force it.
Right.
And it's like the analogy somebody once told me was like dating, right? You can't force it. It has to happen because the moon's kind of aligned and it's the right thing. And if it's not, just keep looking.
Right.
Because it's out there. You just have to just keep looking. But when it comes to that process that you're going to do it on, that common sense factor, you need to keep that, because otherwise somebody looks at it like, "Oh, is this person going to do this when I send them to a client?" I mean, if they did that and were coming to your home, are you going to be scared about connecting them to your client? Now you do that to your client, and then your client calls you and they're like, what did you send me? It's no different. We had this happen this week. 3 times this week.
Oh, geez.
3 times. All right. And it's only Wednesday.
Right.
We interview the candidate.
Right.
We go through our whole process. They look perfect on paper. Everything checks out. Background. We got their stuff. Everything's ready. Send it to the client. Client calls. We just interviewed this person like a month ago.
Right.
Go back to the candidate. What's the deal? Oh, is that who that was? Oh, I forgot. How do you forget an interview that you went on? Now, I will give anybody the benefit of the doubt who says, "I can't remember, I submitted my information." I totally get it. How do you forget you went on an interview? The worst one was yesterday. And the client called and said, "We just interviewed this person like on Monday."
Right.
And we called them. They're like, yeah. Like, you knew it was the same. It was a law firm too. Made it even worse. Right. And then here's another thing. This is an extra tidbit for everybody looking for work. Recruiters right now, and I don't know what the deal is, but it has been growing over it all year long. They are not really having conversations with people. They are throwing things against the wall to see if it sticks.
Right there.
And then the client, we're going back to the client after we've done a full interview. We've done the whole thing. And the client goes, "Oh, well, we had another firm. Send them." And we go back to the individual and they're like, "Somebody called me 2 weeks ago and asked me if I was interested, but they never told me who it was, how much it paid, anything." So I highly recommend you guys, don't waste that time. Somebody calls, get them to send you an email confirmation. Get them to actually do something to get you to sign, because if they just send your resume and you go into a system in a company, and then the company says no,
you're not gonna.
You're like locked out of anybody helping you, because the company goes, "Well, this company sent them; they have ownership," and then they won't look at it again. And and even if you submit, they're like, "We can't even talk to you." So make sure we always do a right to represent. We do a form, and it says exactly who we are, what we're doing, and we will not submit you unless we know the company, what we're doing. And sometimes you have to do an NDA depending on what type of search. But make sure you're very, very careful about that before you allow anyone to submit. Get them to send you information so you have their contact information. You can track it, which you should be. You should be tracking every place you're submitting your information anyway. But that has come up a lot over the last 30 days for sure. Probably because the market is so much tougher out there, and you've got these kind of fly-by-nights just tossing resumes.
When you do your discovery calls, Bill, and and you talk to the recruiters, and I think it's real important, and I like how we do it is, we meet with the hiring manager, definitely. Like what do they want? What's their pet peeves? Like the one GM that I have, his pet peeve, let me tell you, if you're late, turn around. Don't even, if you message me and say, hey, Dave, I'm running a little bit late, I just say turn around. I will not even send an email. I'll just say, Ed, I said, it's...
Yeah. 10 years ago, we had clients. Yeah, 10 years ago, we had clients that were that bad. Today, they're more about if you're late and you don't say something in advance, they're done. And I think it all depends on the level of position, but that's really a great point that we always try to communicate to the individual interviewing what those are if we know them in advance. Being late and not communicating, that's horrible. Yeah. But things happen. And I think, again, I always believe in give the person the benefit of the doubt. You get that, you get a chance, right? And it happens. Yep. But you have to communicate, and a lot of companies look at communication as one of those triggers. Like we have an 11 different pinpoints, 7 to 11 different things that we watch and monitor. We don't tell everybody what those are, but those are some of them, like being late, showing up to a video interview looking like you just did yard work. I know that automatically to us is gone.
That's what I was going to bring up right here about that.
Yeah. I mean, because that tells me that's what you're going to do. I'm a real interview, by the way. Like, you have to get through me to get to my client. Right. So if you show up like you've just, planted in your back 40 acres, unless this is a job on a farm, you're going to be out. That's all there is to it, because I just can't trust that you're not going to show up the same way with my client.
Well, I try to make sure I tell them, like you said, especially for the videos, like, listen, you got to make sure, like, I didn't realize as simple as, did you download the Teams app? Because if it's on Teams and you don't clarify that, that's kind of the recruiter fault in a way, but it also, now I always say, hey, do you have the Teams app? Because all of a sudden you're getting ready to sign on and you can't get on, you're late, because I didn't know I had to have a Teams app. I'm like, oh my God, you didn't even know that. But there again, testing like the background, where putting your background on. I've seen some of them. I'm like, what are you doing? Should you, at certain levels, do you have to tell somebody this? That's what I'm looking at, because I've seen some.
I think you have to remind. I think you have to remind everybody, because they don't do. That's not something you do every day, right? You're not a professional interviewer, so helping someone out, pointing them in the right direction, that's always helpful. But I'll take it a step further than the Teams. Did you look at our website?
Right.
I mean, do you know who you're interviewing with? I mean, did you just Google them?
Right.
Just to get a little something? I mean, a little bit of an investment of time shows your real interest.
Right.
That's never going to stop. Look, it's a tough market for top talent.
Right.
And I think there's a big differentiator between where do you think you are in the food chain? And that's really a big discussion too. I mean, where, based on what you're, I don't care.
I like that right there. I love it. That's good.
Based on whatever your skill, job, talent, title, whatever, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't care if you're a barista or you're a CFO, right? You need to know, where do you live in the food chain? And I will tell you, just as difficult to hire a barista as it can be a CFO sometimes, right?
Right.
No doubt about it. So don't look at this as I'm saying anything bad about one or the other. What I'm saying is, understand, where do you live in the food chain? Right. And then know your audience. Like, don't show up to a gunfight with a knife, is my famous line that I use all the time. And an interview is just like that. You should come to an interview prepared to battle.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Know your audience. Do a little bit of research. If you don't invest the time to understand, then what value? They don't know if you're really interested. How are you going to differentiate? If they're interviewing 50 people, And you come to the table and you go, it's interesting. I was reading the other day that you guys just launched blah, 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 and you're about to do this. It's really interesting because the last company I was at did that and it was a complete failure. So I hope you guys have a better consulting company than what they did. Wow. Okay. If this is an HR manager and it's an HRIS program or something launch, I don't know, just pulling that thin air.
Right.
They may be like, wow, how bad was it? And then you build rapport, right? So know your audience. But it's a matter of doing that in advance, just like checking out the Teams call or checking out a video call.
Yeah.
And there's so many different platforms right now also. That's another thing I think we run into is that, swapping between teams. And today I did a Zoom. I was on a Zoom call, 2 Teams calls, then I went back to a Zoom call. Well, when I went back to that 4th call today, my Zoom didn't work. I mean, I had to reboot. And so even for us to do the podcast today, when I went to do it, it was and that's the thing is that you do all of these all day long, it will bog down your computer. So I had to reboot and I barely scooted in here right in time, a little bit worried because then there was a Windows update.
Right.
So, be prepared, but yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
I didn't have that. I tell them even with the videos, it doesn't mean that you don't have to dress up as much, because you're not coming in person. Because I've seen and I've been on. I'm very honest. I'm like, listen, if you got, I shouldn't have to tell you this, but at least for the video interview, you still should stand out. And I think that's just me. I just maybe because of the military. I just love that's why I love my back. I love everything just perfect on the interviews. Like you said, you gotta read questions that you've never done before, and try to think how you're going to answer those because all those different types of there's so many different interview styles. And different names for each style, from the behavioral and a lot of people. I'll tell you what, if you don't know and break that down, you can just tell that the person doesn't know.
It's funny too. You just said something that really hit me, and that was you like everything perfect. And I think that's a key point is that every interview you need to assume, which we know about assuming, but you need to go into it with the mindset that it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
And so how do you prepare for not perfect?
Right.
And if you look at it differently and take your points are valid on every piece of that, but look at it as, okay, if it goes south, what's my out? If they ask a question, what do I have lined up? If they go this way, what am I going to say? And then how do this is the one that I really always try to focus on is that how am I going to differentiate from anybody else?
Right.
What's going to be something when they ask me, if they ask me, something about myself that nobody else would know about, or something that really stands out that I've made a difference in. I mean, what's my differentiator? And that's the point. How are they going to remember me when it's all said and done? Now, lots of crazy stories. We know we've talked about these over the years. We could write a book. But when you think about that, think about if you've done your research. And again, guys, you don't have to spend, we're not talking hours before an interview. I'm talking 15 minutes, 30 minutes of time minimum. Just invest in doing a little research and then figuring out, they went to they grew up in the same town. Oh, they might know this person. Oh, look on LinkedIn. I'm connected to some people. Yep. Oh, hey, there's somebody here. And you're doing this hopefully a couple days in advance. Yep. You're connected to somebody in the company. Hey, David, Bill here. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a long time. I see that you work at XYZ company. I'm having an interview this week. Any pointers? How do you like working there? Right. Is there anything that really stands out? Ask these people that work there. Ask them for just an idea or thought. Something, because you've got to differentiate at the end of the day. Now, somebody's going to be like, oh, well, that could backfire. Yeah, it could. Yeah. But guess what? Doing nothing is still nothing. Right. Nothing of nothing is always going to be nothing. Something of something at least gives you a chance.
I had a gentleman on my last podcast with Amy. We did the Ring of Hire where we put a live interview. So we did.
I saw that. That was great.
For some reason, Bill, and we're still trying to figure this out, and I told Perry, he's writing it. That was one of the highest viewed for a show for doing that subject of getting hired. So he was excited. So I was like, wow. So we really try to help him. So today, he went on mine and started tagging companies that he wants to work at Hershey. There was one job. He said, Dave, you're connected to 3 of the recruiters. I said, okay. After this tonight, I'll look up the recruiter, and then I'll do like a introduction. But my point there with him is, first of all, I don't know, for the show that he did, he was very professional when he talked. It went on for like about 35 minutes. We tried to keep it right around that time.
Yeah.
But he tried something different. He never did something like this. And I'll tell you what, it's really helped his morale. Like, he's really pumped up because I see he went on there and tagged Hershey. He's trying to, and I said, it's okay to do that on LinkedIn. But now you got people, there you go, just like you said, check out to see. I didn't know I was connected to the recruiters there.
Yeah.
So I'll tag their names on the video, and then I'll send them an introduction. But there again, there was a person, like, he's motivated, but that was a high show. And, I learned a lot about the airline industry just for what he did. I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize there was so much stuff behind that. Holy crow.
Trying stuff like that, if we think back, which it just ages us, but if you go back 10 years, 15 years ago, we used to encourage people to do the same thing, leaving voice messages, right? Call yourself on your cell phone, leave a voice message. And it's the same thing. Yeah, to hear yourself and hear how you sound. And it's the same thing with even the video interviews. Like, if you haven't done one, you need to have a friend connect to you and do a video thing until you're comfortable enough to do an interview. Because if we think about COVID, which really pushed all of us into who weren't comfortable doing them into a comfort zone to at least get on them, which you brought up earlier, like, don't people know how to do this at this point? No, they don't. And that's the crazy part. No, they don't. I still get on calls with my own team, and they're talking, and it's like, you're mute, and like, you're muted, everybody, you're muted. Like,
I love it,
guys. I mean, how long have we doing this, right? I mean, it's gonna happen, and so you got to be able to go through it enough times to have humor. And then I fall back on having grace on people. It's just, this is what it is. You're not going to be perfect.
No, I get people all the time, I don't like the way I look on video. I'm like, okay, so what's the difference? You're going to face, you can dress up and you can look, what's the difference? But there again, you know what? Some people just don't know.
Right.
So they don't know, and I think they could record. Listen, with cell phones nowadays, record yourself answering questions. I've done that. I wanted to see, because what my problem was when I was interviewing through the years was I always would talk too much sometimes, blabber on. Like, it just was like, in your mind, you're thinking, all right, I got to shut up. I got to stop. When am I keep going here? And then you're like, I like how you said before, remember you said, where's your out? Where is your out when you don't know what else to say?
Yeah.
I just needed to stop and breathe.
So this is, and I'm going to share this. This is kind of huge. And I don't know. I haven't tested. I'm going to tell you the first one. I haven't tested the second one.
Right.
I have been told this. Actually, I'll do the second one first. I have been told that if you take Siri and you ask Siri that you're doing an interview and you tell them who the company is and what the position is, and you ask Siri for help, that she will do a mock interview with you. Now, I've also heard that Alexa would do it as well. I don't know, but I will tell you, and I know this for a fact, Claude, the AI LLM program, Claude, if you take the job description, drop it in there, and then ask Claude to do like a mock interview, asking you questions that you would incorporate around the company, tell them who you're doing, Claude will do that with you. And so I would, and I don't want to assume anything, but I would pretty much guess that most of them would as well. The Siri and the Alexa thing could be interesting. Siri's really interesting because, again, you'd have to put the job description in there, but I think it can actually read off of your phone and email. And so if you had the job description, it could be read off of that. But Siri may actually, and Alexa can talk. And you could actually have a conversation back and forth in a way that would be awkward too. But my gosh, speaking to a human should be better.
Yeah, right. To do that, I have the newer Alexa, and it's going to. I'll hear it up there. It's going to say, but with the AI, with the new Alexa built, I swear, I have a cat named Alexa, and that's the mistake. Yeah. So now I have that Alexa trained to where, because I'm always like Alexa, and the thing goes off. I'm like, no, it's the cat. That thing talks to me about my cat, about what it does. I bet it does. And I'm like, I find myself talking to this thing. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
I tried to rename Claude. I didn't like Claude. And so I tried to change Claude's name, and Claude said, I'm going to stick with Claude.
Right.
Which I thought, oh my God, that's how sarcastic. So it just shows you, there are so many tools that are free that you could use. That you could also, if you're not comfortable with that, but also put that job. You've got the job description in your interview. Put it into one of these chats and say, hey, I'm doing an interview. Again, you don't have to be well versed on the prompts and all of that technical stuff. Just type it like you're speaking it, and just say, I'm doing an interview. Give me some questions to put this company may ask me that you think would be relevant to this type of a position, so I could be prepared.
Now, do you coach, Bill? You've done your 11 points. You've done everything. Your recruiters. You're ready to make that submittal. Do you coach that candidate as well before they go? And
so,
we talked about little things like pet peeves, but I'm talking about, do you coach them about maybe some of the questions that might be asked, or maybe anything like that, or?
That's a really great question, because I think I'm going to answer it the one way, and then I'm going to say there's another way. We do a prep call before every interview.
Right. I like that.
The prep call is really centered around going through the job description again, discussing the position in detail, asking them about questions, things that maybe didn't come up before, or questions they have. Which normally leads us into ideas, thoughts. Hey, I haven't done this before. What do you think? How's the personality? And then that's when we have an opportunity again to encourage them to go take a look at the website. Make sure you go to the website. Make sure you go take a look. See if you're connected. Take a look at this. Now, other agencies have been known. We just don't do it because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in giving somebody answers, because at some point you're going to have to know this or not. But I know there are other agencies that give them, hey, they're going to ask you boom, boom, boom. Now, being prepared for certain questions, I don't have a problem doing that, because that's part of the job usually, right? Like, they're going to probably want to walk you through this, and this of this position. Talk to me about that. How would you answer something like that?
Right.
How do you feel about this? That's okay. But saying to them, hey, they're going to ask you to do an algorithm based on blah, 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 blah. No, that's not what it's about. The coaching thing is to be coaching them in the right manner to understand, here's what they're looking for. This is our understanding.
And they should know it.
You're
right. I guess you're right when you say, I go both ways. I listen to you and I'm thinking, I can see that, because if it's a certain job, why would you have to do some of the things? Because you should know that they should.
You're just going to set up to fail, right?
Right. That's what I mean. I'd be like, I like to make that submittal, but at the same time, I want it to be the right one too, and not just, answer it for that. But how important, I want to ask you one more thing, then I have 10 minutes. I want to change the subject.
Okay.
How do you feel the voice of the tone in an interview is when you do your interviewing over the phone, even on a video call? I've actually, again, I've done it. I've said, listen, you got to sound a little bit more upbeat. They have the qualifications. The qualifications are there, but I can see that if I'm thinking about that person, the way they're talking, come on. You can usually, in 10 minutes into it, maybe get them up to it, like start picking it up. But that beginning is, I don't know. I just like the tone of the voice is important, I feel.
I agree with you 100%. So, I mean, if you're doing a phone interview and you sound
asleep,
like
you just woke up.
Well, you're totally asleep, disinterested, don't even know why you're there.
Right.
You're wasting my time. I could have been watching, American Idol.
Right.
You're just sucking the life out of me being on this thing. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to get excited. Now, you need to have an engaging conversation. You need to have an engaging conversation, a talk, a discussion that you're engaged, that you're listening and answering, not repeating the question, then answering, but giving a structured response.
Right.
And then you definitely want to be upbeat. You want to be encouraging. The big thing is, if it's a position that you feel comfortable with, then you want to also be encouraging and pushing forward that you have interest. You want to continue the conversation. You would love to do a video interview or in-person interview. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, that's just all there is to it.
Right.
And then whatever you do, don't do a phone interview and start cussing.
I know, I've done that.
I mean,
I've heard that.
Keep it professional. Don't bash. Don't start talking about your ex-boyfriend. And somebody went down this one off, my boyfriend, blah, 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 and he did this. And it's like, oh, I can't believe you just said that. Keep it, again, read your audience and understand who you're addressing, right?
I can even tell if they're working for somebody already and they really don't want to leave. They're just doing the interview. You can sense it. You can be like, all right, he's not really interested in
Isn't
the
that
job.
called interviewing for a raise? Interviewing for a raise. You're not really going to make the move.
Yeah.
The second thing is the video, right? And here's this is a great example. So we're doing a video podcast. I'm looking at myself right now. My eyes aren't looking straight ahead.
Right.
And the reason is the way the camera is in our screen in front of us and where you're over here. I think if I'm looking like right now, my eyes, I think, look straight ahead.
Yep, right at me.
Okay.
If I'm looking at, you're doing that right now. Yep.
Because I'm looking right at you. But if I'm looking at myself speaking, which unfortunately is the tendency that we have as humans, because I've got two screens, then it makes it look like I'm looking a different way. Now, if I'm doing this interview and the whole time we're doing this talk, my head is down.
Right.
And I'm not looking up, I'm not very interested. Or if I'm all of a sudden in the middle of this thing, sorry I kept you up, right? Now, I've seen that before, which is just horrifying to see, right? And so it's just about, it's a real interview. How many, I don't know about you, but for me, there's a high number of people that get hired on the video interview. High numbers. That is the interview. That's it. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's all they need, because that's all they see. They don't know that I'm wearing shorts right now.
Right.
Nobody needs to know that. Right.
No, you're right.
If you have that opportunity to do that video interview, show up to the interview like a real interview. If you want the job, act like it when you show up to the interview. Now, don't be late. As you said, David, which is, I love this, is like practice in advance, show up 5 minutes early, do everything that you should do if you were to go to their office in person. I mean, are you going to show up 5 minutes late in the office? No. If you know that it's in a downtown location, you've got a high rise and a parking lot, you got to park in and walk, you got to find parking, then allocate the right amount of time.
I do a test ride. I've always done a test ride the night before. I've gone out and, just to see if it took 35 minutes, I'm going to give myself 50 for the first day, anything like that. Because like you said, I that's just me. I guess the way I was raised is, I get there early. I like when candidates get there early. I think it's great.
I don't have a problem. Right. I think an hour early.
Right. Yeah. That's a little too far.
I think it goes back to the professional. What's the tone?
Right.
And what is the tone you want to set? Right. And so if you set the right tone, then you're setting it up for you to be successful. And that's really what it's all about at the end of the day.
For that. All right. I want to change for like about 8 minutes. All right. I want to change the subject. I'm going to give you a short story. My brother,
8 minutes. All
8 minutes. My brother did 30 years in prison. He just got out a year ago. 27 actually, because he was good behavior on 3. His first time in Florida, he stole they smoking marijuana, him and his wife, no problem. That's 1. Strike 1. Strike 2, he was into drugs, boom, stole gas, him and his wife, boom. They got like 6 months. The third time, he was at his boss's, and there was more to this, but he said, they're my tools. He said, no, they're not. He took the stuff out of the garage, copper, generator, all this stuff, and just took off. He either was high or something, took off, high-speed chase, whatever, cops get him. He gets 30 years mandatory. 3-strike rule. My question is, when I know because since my brother's going through it, but I am into a lot of second chance employment. But that's me because I have a story behind it. I've been every year going down and visit them, hearing the stories of other candidates or prisoners and, felons. But when they get out is, they were saying 1 in 3 people have either some kind of misdemeanor in America. And, we have 2 million people incarcerated. Do you see ways that people can help themselves? What do you do? What do you tell somebody that has a background? Me, I always just have a list of companies that hire the felons. Yeah. But when you have a man like that get out, okay, his history. I get it. I really do with companies. I understand it. Hey, stealing, theft, grand, whatever that was. But how does a person come through that?
So that's a really great question. So the first thing to address is that we don't call it having a background.
Right.
That's the first thing, because It's out of respect.
Right.
Number one, we call it you've had a blemish.
Okay.
It's a blemish in your background.
Right.
Right. That's the first thing. Because if you're Christian or whatever religion, whatever it may be, you believe that we're here,
right.
And we all make mistakes, and I do, and none of us are perfect.
Right.
And so we should be forgiven, and we should be able to move on. Okay. Your brother made mistakes, right. And it's harsh.
Yeah.
30. I mean, that's harsh. He did his time.
Yep.
He did his time, and he's come out, and now he should have the right to restart his life. Now, the question is, and I don't know, but I'm gonna throw. So I'm just gonna assume. Let's say he's a convicted felon. He did his time. So unfortunately, he has to disclose this. It's part of this whole deal. There's certain positions he's just not going to be able to get because companies aren't going to hire him, and there's nothing he can do about it. But then you can find companies that will. It just depends on what he does. So if he spent 30 years and he was the CFO of a company and was all about financial, probably not going to get a job at a bank.
Right. He's been doing the construction and he builds home. He can do anything, and people get. There's companies in Florida that, they know because they're in that area. So they send the work release people, like they can work to get out. And a lot of those employees are really good employees.
That's right. That's right. And he should have the right, and people should treat it that way, to give him the right to do something. Also, there are tax advantages to companies that hire people like that.
The WQTC it is, I think it's called.
Something, yes. WOTC. Yeah. So there are opportunities for companies to benefit from it too. But it's important to understand the level of what they do, and do they have clients that are open to that? I can tell you that our clients are very hit and miss. Right. It's very difficult. I have I can't place a dentist necessarily with another practice if they have had a lot, and they may not have gone to jail, but because they've been disciplined by different state boards.
Makes sense.
Why? It's difficult or almost impossible for a private practice to get them credentialed and bonded and insurance. It's stupid.
Oh, so it does. I was reading that. It does have a lot. I didn't believe that the insurance. When you do that, is it because the people are nervous things could happen, liability, or
it's exactly. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. But then, the other part of it, David, is it's also virtually impossible for anyone to promise, and this is what bothers me. When a company hires someone and they say, "Oh, I've got it. It's pending their background check." And we need a nationwide search. Okay. There isn't such a thing. Can we just talk about that? There isn't a search, everybody, that it guarantees 100% of a nationwide search, except the NCIC search with the FBI, which, by the way, 99% cannot access. Now, if you're a financial institution, a school district, certain roles where you get fingerprinted and it's sent, they run it through the system. Those are specific. But for Joe average company who thinks, well, I checked them out, it's not a problem, then you're already got an issue because you can't even do that anyway. And then it only could go back technically 7 years. And it only shows 7 years unless in your brother's situation a little bit different.
Yeah, it's going to be
because it's going to be after the fact.
See, but a lot of people don't realize that. I get people that come a lot. I'd be like, listen, it's 10 years or whatever, but from the time you got out, 10 years it's not on there. They get out of there thinking, oh, it's not going to be on my record. Yes.
Oh, and then not only that, here's the other thing. EEOC has absolutely made it clear that if it is not work related, you cannot hold it against them. You have to be able to show
that what you're talking about, because that's right there too about the. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So here's an example. I'm trying to come up with a good example. I am the social media person for a company, and but I have a DWI. Well, we're not going to hire you because you have a DWI and you're on 6 months probation for the DWI. The DWI has nothing to do with you being a social media person. Are you trying to tell me that you're afraid that they're going to be under the influence and posting out stuff? That is a long stretch, brother. Right? I just think you're going to have a big issue. Here's something else people don't understand. Unless you are in a position where your role is going to be, and not only, but I'm going to call it as a standard fiduciary. So you're going to be an accountant. And you've gone through the process and they're ready to make an offer for you, but they want to check to make sure that you don't have anything, because you're going to, okay, you should probably agree to it, but you shouldn't do it before you do an interview. Like that shouldn't happen before I even meet with you. You need to do a background check and everything else. Well, so you're going to automatically weed me out because I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that I did something. I mean, we have people that will put down 25 years ago, I wrote a bad check. You're like, thanks for being honest, but don't ever tell anybody that again. Did you go to jail? No. What happened? I had to go pay a fine. God bless you for being so honest, but just nobody cares.
That's why I tell people I don't want to hear about it. I just don't want to hear about it. I don't. I think, and that I'm glad you said that, because I didn't realize that you got to be careful with that, because
EEOC says that you should not be asking. That's why the application and check the box went away years ago, because we used to have it on an application and there was a box on there that said, have you ever been convicted? And you had to check a box and fill it out. And the EEOC said that asking that question before you even met the person disqualified too many people. And you know what?
I agree on that. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a reason to disqualify someone. And if they don't have the skill set, that's a reason. But if you're looking and you're disqualifying them and they were honest, no. Now, if you go through the process, and we do this, we will ask. We're doing our interview. After we do our interview internally, we send a form, an internal document form to people, and it does ask, complete this information. It will ask them if you have anything after we do an interview. Because we've done the interview with you already. Now we need to know. Now, if you answer that incorrect and you do have something, then we get down the path and it comes back, I can automatically disqualify you. Now,
that makes total sense. Why, like you said, why you can't hide it.
No. And that's why we call it a blemish, because we make mistakes. It's something that happened in your back. It's a blemish. You got over it. You've moved on with life, right?
I call them kids. They get stuck for selling marijuana or something easy like that, right? They get a misdemeanor. It's only 3 years ago, and it gets held against them. And I'm thinking, well, Jesus, it's legal. It's legal here in Pennsylvania to have marijuana. Should that person be held 3 years ago just for having a certain amount of pot on them?
But listen, in Colorado, remember when Colorado first legalized it?
Yeah, they were the first ones. Yeah.
And then everybody was like, oh, here we go. Yep. And then the company said that was one of the questions. And they're like, well, we still drug test. And they're like, well, you showed up with THC in your background. We can't hire you.
And
then the people were like, yeah, but it's legal here. And they're like, yeah, but it's not legal. We don't care. It's our policy. It's no different than saying you can go buy alcohol, but it doesn't mean I want you showing up at the office every day 3 sheets to the wind. That's not going to happen.
Have a card,
it's still not allowed
for marijuana. I'm like,
God, it doesn't make it. It doesn't. You're not. It's not going to happen. So I think you have to figure out, which way you're going to go. But for companies, I just try to always tell them, if you're going to do the background and you send the offer letter, and always have it pending on a clear background. Don't make the commitment, and then make sure you realize that there isn't a perfect search. We just had a new client actually come to us about 2 weeks ago, needing to hire a controller, and then everything got put on hold. They knew something was wrong. Well, their controller was embezzling. And now everything's on hold for like a month. And they came back today and said, hey, when we go forward, we're going to need to do a nationwide search, blah, blah, blah. And we said, look, you need to understand there isn't such a thing. There's tons of companies out there that do searches. There is not a 100% foolproof way to do that. So just understand, if you want to use multiple companies to search it, you want to try and search it inside out, great. But there's not 100% way, and it's just things happen. But
that's what I feel, and I just tell my brother all the time, hang in there. I mean, he gets his jobs here and there, and other guys that are out, they always ask me questions because he tells them, oh, he's in staffing, you know what I mean? And I've reached out. There's companies in Florida that I've known people on LinkedIn that have helped me, that have said, okay, yeah, they hire felony, or especially for a lot of the constructions and a lot of different things, they'll do that. So then I'll send the information, and just by helping them like that, I can see, especially for only a couple years. And I know I say only a couple years in jail, but I guess it depends on what it's for. And I get it, I really do. I understand, but I think it's because when you feel about it yourself, when you go through it, then you can see what other people. I'm like, wow,
yeah.
I didn't realize.
You have to, again, kind of goes back to what we started talking about. You got to have a little bit of grace for people. But interesting tidbit. And I don't know what the number is currently, but I know it wasn't too many years ago. It was a substantial percentage of entrepreneurs have a blemish, and like a large number in their background. And the reason is that they were so fed up with trying to fight the system to get something to move ahead after they had actually paid their dues, that unfortunately they couldn't, that they just went out to create something, and they created a business, and they don't have to worry anymore because they don't have to answer to people. So that's another interesting thing. And there are so many companies out there of individuals that have, it's in Dallas, and it's called Cornbread Hustle.
Right. No, I've heard of that. Somebody told me about that. Yeah.
And the woman who started it, she either had, there's something about her background. It was either drugs or use or alcohol, something, where she created the company. It's phenomenal what it does to help people that are like that, to put them on the right paths, give them that opportunity. And then they put people to work doing that. And so you think outside of the box when you're running down that road. But I know, I'll look it up next time we talk and take a look. But it's a substantial number that end up becoming entrepreneurs.
Just from that, and that makes total sense.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Wow, but this one's a longer one. This was like a 51 minute, 52 minutes.
Well, we didn't have anybody jump in here this week, so I don't know if it wasn't working or...
I don't know. You're that or it wasn't. That's why I said, I was like, all right.
Or we didn't do a very good job of pushing it out there. I'm going to do a better job for the next one.
Let me just see here real quick a second. I mean, I know I'm live. I'm like, all right, people, let's see. Okay, it better be, or else I'll be like, we're talking to, it says live on all the different things. I can tell people, and okay. Yeah, there we are.
All right. As long as we're live. So
we're going to figure it out.
But anybody, we'll get it next time.
Yeah, you feel free to ask questions. Anything you want to hear on the show. Episode 3, like I said, we got many more to come. It's every other Tuesday. We'll post it on there. And, Bill, if you want to say about Frontline Source, what you do again, I think that's great at the end.
Well, Frontline Source Group, I recommend everybody go to our LinkedIn page, look up Frontline Source Group on LinkedIn, follow us. Make sure you're following. We post all of our new positions there. We post, there's videos, blogs, ideas, thoughts.
I tell everybody,
there's just tons of stuff.
Everybody to go to your website.
Well, very kind.
You've done a lot of work on there, and I'll tell you, if anybody, you want to go there and look top notch, I mean, every single thing about your company, you can't get, I'm stuck in there all the time because I'm like, all right, what's this little drop down? Oh, ask Bill, there's this. And I'm like,
well,
right,
go in there and do it, ask. And we've got a bunch of cool stuff about to launch with AI, and we're ramping up our AI recruiter to take it to a whole nother level and just try to make that experience better for everybody, because it is difficult going through it. But frontlinesourcegroup.com, check us out. Appreciate it very much.
All right,
check out our YouTube. Check out our YouTube page too, man.
Oh, you got YouTube now?
We got like 6,000 subscribers.
Oh, I'm going to go on right after this.
It's unbelievable.
I'll find it. All right, Bill, I'm going to say goodbye to you after this video here. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.